she used one word. That is how it started, not a press conference, not a carefully prepared statement released to the correct channels with the correct language approved by the correct people. One word placed in a specific location where the people who needed to see it would see it, at a specific time when the context around it would do the work that 100 words of explanation could not have done as efficiently. One word. And the people who saw it understood immediately that everything that had been speculated about, everything that had been discussed in the particular hushed and urgent tone that the subject had always been discussed in, everything that had been presented as rumor and then as possibility and then as probability, all of it had just been confirmed by a single word from the only person whose word on the subject actually mattered. Haadiya Zen had spoken. I need to tell you who she is before I tell you what she said. Not the public version, not the name attached to the speculation and the headlines and the particular narrative that has been built around her in the absence of anything she herself contributed to. The actual person. Because what she did and why she did it cannot be understood without understanding who is doing it. And who is doing it has been so thoroughly obscured by the version constructed around her silence that the person and the public figure have become almost entirely separate things. She's precise. This is the first thing. Everything about her is precise. The way she speaks, the way she moves, the way she occupies space and time and the attention of people around her. Not in the cold way of someone who has chosen precision as a defense against intimacy. In the warm way of someone who respects things enough to be exact about them, who understands that imprecision is a form of disrespect toward the subject, toward the person you are speaking to, toward the truth of whatever you are trying to describe. She chose one word because one word was precise. More words would have been less accurate. More words would have introduced the possibility of interpretation, of the meaning shifting slightly depending on which words you emphasize and which you let fall back. One word left no room for that. One word was the thing itself, stated exactly, without the softening or the qualification or the careful surrounding of difficult truths with language designed to make them easier to receive. She did not want it to be easy to receive. She wanted it to be exact. The word was placed on a platform she had used rarely, not the one she was most associated with, not the one where her presence was most established and her audience most prepared for her. A different one, smaller, less monitored. The choice of platform was itself part of the communication. She was not making a public announcement designed for maximum reach. She was making a specific statement directed at specific people who would know to look in that specific place. Those people looked, they found the word, and then they did what people do when they receive something they have been waiting for, without knowing exactly what form it would arrive in. They sat with it for a moment before they responded. Because the moment before response is the moment when something is still only true and has not yet become a reaction to its own truth. That moment was brief, then the responses came. I want to tell you what the word was, but first I need to tell you what it cost her to place it there. This is the part that is not in any of the coverage. The coverage began at the word and worked outward, what it meant, what it confirmed, what would follow from it. The coverage did not work inward, toward the person who said it and what the saying required of her and what she was giving up in the act of giving one word to a world that had been demanding much more for a very long time. She had been silent for a specific reason, not fear. I want to be direct about this, because the narrative that has formed around her silence consistently implies fear, that she was keeping quiet, because speaking would cost her something she could not afford, that the silence was a condition imposed from outside rather than a choice made from inside. This narrative is convenient for people who need her silence to be the result of pressure rather than preference. It makes her smaller than she is. It makes the silence a cage rather than what it actually was. A decision. She had decided not to speak because speaking, in the forms available to her, would have required her to enter a conversation she did not want to have. The public conversation about what happened. The one conducted in headlines and comment sections and the particular breathless language of people who are very certain about things they know nothing about, was not a conversation she respected enough to join. Joining it would have required her to accept its terms, its framing, its assumption that what happened between two people in private was a matter of public adjudication and that her role was to provide the information that would allow the public to reach its verdict. She did not accept those terms. She refused to be a source in someone else's story about her own life, so she stayed silent, Not because she had nothing to say, because the available forms for saying it were all wrong. Because every option for speaking came with conditions attached that she was not willing to meet. The interview that required the framing, the statement that required the careful language, the response that required her to position herself in relation to someone else's version of events, rather than simply stating her own. She waited for a form that had no conditions. One word has no conditions. One word cannot be framed, cannot be given context that shifts its meaning, cannot be used as a source for someone else's narrative because it provides nothing beyond itself, no elaboration, no explanation, no invitation to interpret or expand or build from. It is simply itself, complete and closed and requiring nothing from the person who places it except the decision to place it. She placed it. Now let me tell you what it was. The word was enough. One word. Posted at a specific time in a specific place with no caption, no context, no indication of what it was in response to or directed at or meant to communicate beyond itself. Just enough. The people who needed to understand it understood it immediately. Enough meant, I have been watching this long enough. Enough meant the version of me that exists in the public conversation has been wrong for long enough. Enough meant, I'm not going to elaborate, I'm not going to explain, I'm not going to provide the interview or the statement or the detailed account that everyone has been waiting for. But I am going to place this one word here so that the people who have been telling a particular story know that I know it is wrong and I am finished pretending I do not know. Enough meant I was there, you were not, and I am done being silent about the distance between those two things. This is what she exposed. Not a secret in the traditional sense, not a piece of information previously unknown that changes the factual record. Something more significant than that. The exposure of a gap, the gap between what has been said about what happened and what actually happened, named not with details, but with the simple, final, unarguable fact of her presence in it. She was there. She knows. And she has reached the end of her willingness to let the version told by people who were not there stand as the version without at least placing one word in the public space that says, no, not that, something else, something that I know and you do not, and that I am not going to give you, but that I am no longer going to pretend does not exist. Enough. I spoke to someone who knows her, not closely, close enough. Someone who has been in her orbit for long enough to understand the specific quality of her decisions and what it means when she makes one. This person said when she does something, she has already done it 100 times in her head. There is no impulsive action. There is no word placed anywhere without the full weight of her understanding of what the word will do and what it will not do, and what she is prepared for in the aftermath of placing it. She knew what one word would do. She placed it anyway, because enough was true.